Okay. Hello. Welcome to the Game Audio Hour, a fortnightly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here is where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. Hey, Chase, how are you doing this wonderful 183rd episode of the Game Audio Hour?
Doing fairly well. Just keeping myself very busy and staying updated with everything and keeping up the knowledge, learning lots of
That's
things.
cool. That's cool. Hopefully you're staying warm there. I mean, we're both in California, and it's been weird just having it be pretty darn torrential rain, at least for me. Same for you?
No, not weird. I've been really embracing it actually. Just been enjoying the refreshing washover. And I'm not someone who gets like depressed. I actually get happy during the
Mm.
rain so that I just see it as like a cleansing moment.
Nice. Excellent. We could always use more of that. Speaking
Yeah.
of, Alex, wonderful to be graced by your presence here. How are you doing?
Come on, Vince. Speaking of cleansing, here is Alex.
No, I mean, I
I was
feel
thinking,
like I feel like whenever you're here, it's like, there's going to be some clarity brought to the situation here.
no, it's going to be some purging,
Oh
some
no,
cleansing, some
hold
yeah.
on. Wow, I wasn't thinking about Alex. How are you doing?
Hello, Vince. Hello, Chase. It is a mighty pleasure to be amongst your esteemed presences today on this Monday, the 23rd of March, 2020. Um, I am doing okay. I'm doing okay. There is a lot on all of our minds right now, I think. Just to suddenly take a big bucket of water and pour it on that flame of happiness that we were just stoking just now. Um, but yeah, seriously, I think it's a pretty surreal and kind of a bit scary time that we're going through at the moment,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it certainly is.
Yeah.
And you know, um, we can't just totally ignore it. But all I can say is, uh, despite all of our fears with what's going on in the outside world, all the stuff related to the virus and whatnot, uh, we are very thankful to all of our watchers and listeners that you are able to join us for a little bit of levity, a little bit of exploration of just this world of games and audio. And let's try to stick to that because there's a whole lot of stuff that continues to happen throughout that whole industry. So
Yeah.
let's have a nice let's have a nice hour of game audio, shall we? Woohoo!
We shall. Well said, Vince. Well said.
All right, let's talk about some stuff. I know one of the things that we've been that not just us, but I see a lot of times whenever I go onto forums is people talking about what speakers should I get and what should I get if I want to get my first proper professional monitoring system. Yeah, and you don't just see it from the newbies that are entering these forums and chats. Everyone is interested in what's the next step up. I've been doing this thing for 5 years. What am I going to get for new speakers this time around? And it's almost an industry unto itself when it comes to speakers and monitoring. It's really kind of crazy. I actually haven't updated my monitoring in a few years now. I feel like I'm in a very good place. But I'm actually wondering, for you two, what do you actually use for monitoring, and what are you thinking now when it comes to monitoring advice for people?
Chase, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm rocking out with my HS80Ms that I purchased years ago. I think it's been 11 years now, and I've just got them. They're functioning as more of like a near field because I just got some Dynaudio Airs, and the 16-inch ones, and I'm in a
Hello.
space now where
Whoa.
I can
Hold on,
have
you can't just casually say that you got 16-inch
drop that.
Dyne audios. It's not something that one casually says.
I casually say it because they're not implemented just yet. I'm
Okay.
working on getting everything up and running, but I'm excited, and because I have to do a couple things to the studio, do a snake, get the so on and so forth, stands, et cetera, et cetera. But it's almost there. And so when I have that, then I know they're going to be really, really loud, and I have to adjust to a proper studio format for that in that case. So I'm so used now to the HS80Ms. I know that the mid-range in any room that I've ever been in, from the garage to the kitchen/laundry room where they've been to just a proper bedroom, is the mid-range is terrible. So I compensate for that within the mix. But luckily I've had some experience mixing on the Dyne Audio Airs and I'm prepared for the adjustment that comes with it. Just got to get the room right, which you have educated me, both of you, on previous Game Audio Hour episodes.
Oh man, yeah, we've certainly talked about this topic a bit in the past, but it's always worth seeing all sorts of opinions and perspectives, and our own opinions have changed over the years. I know my own opinion has just really recently, honestly. But before I get into that, Alex, what are you currently using for monitoring?
Yeah, I use two JBL LSR 305s, and they are sitting on stands right here. And then behind me, this room is fantastic. It doesn't look great apart from these two attractive basses, but I was joking with you guys in the green room before the show started that a lot of people come in here. The first thing that they notice is how quiet it is in here. It's really, really quiet in here, except for my stupid PC, which is really, really noisy. Just kind of wipes out all of the work that I've done with these things. Just the PC is so loud. I have to see to that. But yeah, these are. I've got two bass traps here, two bass traps in these opposing corners. So there's four bass traps. I've got the first reflection panels on either side over here, and behind me is this big baffle, and basically turned this room from sounding like I was working in a bathroom to literally sounded like a bathroom. Now it sounds like a movie cinema. It is fantastic. And I have to say that I have some, we'll talk in a moment about sort of things that I want to change and improvements that I want to make. But like these JBL LSR 305s, they're good, really, really good budget speakers, basically. You know, they're not Genelecs. They're certainly not Dyne Audios. They are very, very good speakers that are not that expensive, but like wow, like holy pumping 120 hertzes. Like when I had got all this set up, so I had got these speakers first before the room was set up, and I was actually kind of a bit disappointed in the speakers, and I was thinking, wow, they're good, but like I can't hear any of the bass. I don't know where the bass is going, and like it's just like there's a lot of high end. These LSRs have this funky sort of molded waveguide, which makes the high end response very, very distinctive.
JBL patented.
But wow, yes, that's the one. Once I got these bass traps set up, like amazing. Like it just completely changed the speaker. And then you really, really genuinely hear the speaker as the manufacturer intended, with as little as possible of the actual room playing into it. And that's really when I came to the opinion that like setting a room up like this, of course, is expensive. Actually, in this case, I worked with a company in the UK called GIK Acoustics.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they were fantastic because with them, it's a fantastic business model because basically they say that, okay, send us a photo, send us dimensions, send us the kind of music that you're working on, and then we will consult for free and give you a free guide to say, okay, you need these traps here, you need those there, this many centimeters from the wall, all of that. They'll do that for you for free with a plan. And it's excellent business model because obviously the next step is like, well, of course, if I know this now, and they've recommended specifically their products naturally, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get their products and do this. So they were fantastic to work with, and it was just a really easy process. Like, I did initially start to do a whole lot of research about acoustics and trying to figure out how to do this myself. And there's like countless YouTube videos of like five easy steps to making your own bass track.
Were you doing
kind of
any
stuff.
of that math of like, oh man, I've got this dimension wave, I got this dimension
Oh, yeah.
wave, and then that?
Oh yeah, like, so actually, where I'm sitting right here is actually one third the length of the room.
Right.
Right here. So that's one thing that I learned, is that you need to be about a third of the length of the room. The other thing is, as very commonly known, you need to have an equilateral triangle between your head and the ears need to be level with around the tweeters, and it needs to be an equilateral triangle, which is kind of hard when you have two monitors, because that means that you need to be sitting like way back here to have enough space between the two speakers. But that means the equilateral triangle is very big, which puts your head not at one third of the room anymore. So it was all a little bit tricky. But short of going into really, really extreme hardcore audiophile territory, I did sort of some simple things. And yeah, I got to say, like, the quality of the speakers really, really, really comes through once the room is this good. So I can definitely. My thinking is that if you're at the point in your game audio career where it's kind of like, okay, I've done the headphone thing, ears getting a little tired, making bad choices because my ears are tired, and I'm wearing headphones, and it's just like the 6th hour with this thing on my head. Or even worse, actually, guys, you might remember, good old Kyle, our beloved colleague from the earlier days of Game Audio Hour, he actually, when he was working on one of the longer running titles, I think the entire audio team were wearing headphones for a huge process of it. And I think he mentioned that he actually got an ear infection because closed back headphones like these just don't allow circulation around the ear.
Ugh.
So there are many, not only hearing problems, but there are many health risks associated with just like full-time headphones. Not to mention, like I said, the potential for making bad mixing choices because you're tired, not because of the monitoring setup.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you're at the point of wanting to sort of move on from headphones and you think, okay, I think I'm going to get some speakers and set up a room to do this properly. My personal feeling is that definitely, I would put the budget weighed on the side of the room first, and then look at your speakers with what money you have left over. And even if they're kind of not great, sort of really entry-level speakers, honestly, with a really, really good room, they will shine. And then, as Chase pointed out, I think is something that's really important, is that after that point, you just have to listen to as much as you possibly can in your on your speakers in your setup. Keep listening to as much as you can and just get used to it. And then I think that's an excellent way to get set up in a good monitoring environment. So that's my feeling on the topic.
That's cool. Yeah, I think I generally feel similarly, although I kind of want to harp on one thing that you said towards the end, which is fatigue. I think after a while, I lean on this idea of fatigue being the be-all, end-all. Because if you have a cheap system or a cheap monitoring setup, a cheap set of headphones, if they are not fatiguing, that helps so much. I feel like that's might be the number one thing that I've got when I give advice on anything. Because if it is comfortable, if it doesn't fatigue you, then even if it's something that's totally brand new to you, relatively speaking, then at least that gives you a good, healthy environment to continue learning what are the weird idiosyncrasies of this particular cheap budget in-ear monitor or stereo monitoring setup or what have you. Because, that's what I tend to do right now. It's like, okay, if it's comfortable, if you can live with this, then you can learn it. And if you can learn it, then all right, then you can mix and master and create on it. That's kind of where I am right now when it comes to when I see that question pop up.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that too, because I want to add on, excuse me, like I'm on a project right now, and the understanding what we're monitoring on, even though what we have is all great, our JBLs and our HSMs and so on and so forth, we got to think about when we're working in game audio, who's the end user. And typically like players are using what, like these, nice Turtle Beach headsets or Razer headsets, or probably, some Apple earphones or AirPods or whatever the case may be. And that was brought up to my attention when I was while I'm working on this project, is that they were saying, oh, well, like the bass is coming, it's not coming through, and so, and a couple of other things. And I was like, yes, I know, that's okay, I will fix that. And so what it's adjusted me to is, when I'm doing music or sound design, or I'm doing both, to, if I can create on these and then just monitor after, it's really important that we think about that for the end user as well as listening to it on our nice monitors.
Yeah, I think bass is the hardest one. Like bass is really, really tricky because, yes, to a certain extent, if you are working on at your kitchen table with a set of like super duper cheap monitors because that's all you could afford, and then, if you're thinking, well, I'll just get used to this setup, and if I know these cheap speakers well enough, then I can still do a decent job of mixing. I think that's true to a certain extent. However, the part that really, really shocked me is, for example, these JBLs. When this is a 5-inch speaker, and before I had the room done, I was shocked at the lack of bass. This is like there's no bass coming through these at all, and I was thinking like that this is, what a waste of money this was. Like I can't hear anything. As much as I'd like to say that I want to get used to it, constantly having to switch between headphones to check the bass, which of course you should be doing anyway to be, listening on a variety of different output devices. You need to be doing that anyway. But just sort of like, it'd be nice, like if the point of having these speakers rather than just using headphones all the time is so that I can be more comfortable, sit here without these things on my head, and work for longer without getting tired of having, this closed back headphones suffocating my ears. If the point of doing that was for that reason, but I can't hear any of the bass, then that just doesn't make any sense. So then I found, when I started to research a bit about acoustics, and I found that bass builds up in the corner of rooms. One thing that you can try is put your head in the corner of a room with some music playing at a decent volume. And even with these speakers, it was like, man, all of that bass, all of a sudden, it's like in the corner of my room. It's like, whoa, where is that coming from?
Gosh.
Like, if I sit here, I can't hear it at all. There's no way I can get used to this when I can't hear anything below about 500 hertz. Go into the corner of the room. It's like,
Bass
that's amazing.
buildup.
Where is that coming from?
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that I think is really, really tricky, handling the low end. The high end, to a certain degree, with enough listening, you can get used to, most budget range devices, like most devices across the budget range. Just bass is really, really hard.
Are you using the companion subwoofer for those 305s, or it's just the 305s?
Just the 305s. I don't have the subwoofer. Yeah,
that makes sense.
I actually, despite what I've just said, the next thing that I would really like to get, which won't be for a little while because it actually involves getting a new interface, which would be a wonderful thing if I had the budget for it. But I really want to get one, the mix cubes, the
Avantone mix cubes,
the little
yeah,
like the Avantone, or I think the original one was Auratone.
Oratones,
no, Auratone. Yeah. Auratone is the original mix cube, and then the Avantone is the sort of modern day reissue / homage / ripoff.
Right.
So it's basically one mono speaker in a little kind of enclosure like that, and it's a single, probably a 5-inch speaker, I guess. It's just one little box. So the point of that is sort of the old Yamaha NS10 philosophy, that it's a single driver, and the frequency response from that is very, very biased to the mid-range, obviously. So the point is that without any bass and without any extended treble, and a single mono speaker, if you can mix your stuff to sound good on that, then it's a much easier process then to make it sound good on a larger, more extensive system.
Mm-hmm.
So I think specifically for if you're in mobile games, like when this is your main output device or little bud headphones, and then of course because a lot of the work that we're doing is in mono anyway, especially with VR stuff. That's the next thing. But I need to get a new interface because this Focusrite only has one set of outputs, so I wouldn't be able to sort of switch between speakers. I have to unplug things, and I don't. That's kind of a bit ridiculous. Or get a switcher, I suppose, is another option.
And yeah, I'm not sure what I'd be doing to update my. Well, actually, that's not true. You know, when I think about all of our setups, like the speakers that we're all using are actually on the lower end of the spectrum. You know, disregarding the fact that Chase has these 16-inch Dynaudios that need to be put into place, but
with the subwoofer.
Oh my God. All right. So once you got that set up, I need to visit because that sounds amazing.
Yeah, once you got that set up, I don't think I need to visit. I'll hear you from here in Sweden. What is that rumbling coming through the ground?
Chase is working again. Gotcha.
Chase with the bass again.
Chase with the bass.
Okay. Well, you know, putting that aside, you know, we all actually have speaker pairs that are on the lower end of the spectrum. Like, I remember I have these Vanitus, and they're not traditionally seen as sort of near field monitoring, but I actually really like them. They're very accurate, and they cost me like $400 or something like that. You know, and I think the LSRs are sort of in that same spectrum. Those Yamahas that you've got, Chase, also in that same, you know, that price range if you're looking at buying something like that new. It's actually kind of amazing how cheap stuff is now. I remember when I was starting out in the industry, you know, not quite 20 years ago, it always seemed like if you wanted to get something good, well, maybe you have to get something used, honestly, especially on my college budget. But now it's actually really amazing that you can get something $100, $200, and it will be good and it will be serviceable, and maybe even great sounding. But then you don't actually realize just how great it is until you put it in that right space. You know, after consulting with Gick Acoustics and whatnot, and setting your room up properly. That's pretty awesome that you're able to unleash the full potential of those JBLs now.
Yeah, I can thoroughly recommend doing that. I mean, any company, not necessarily GIK Acoustics, they were fantastic, but just wow, like holy cow, these speakers are amazing. It was the first thing I said when I put on a track of music, a reference track that I know pretty well. It's like this is a completely different product now. This is amazing. So actually in the chat room on YouTube, which if you're watching and you're not taking part, and you should get in there, Florian has commented that to get the mix cubes going without getting a new interface, I could get Y cables, which is a good cheap solution, or also a passive switch box would also. I think the Tascam makes one, I think, which is basically takes inputs and you just kind of press a button to passively switch between outputs, I think.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's also an option for me. So this is an excellent segue into my top secret discussion topic that I wanted to drop on you guys live here on the show. So for all of the thousands of people who are watching right now, Chase and Vince are actually completely unawares of this topic that I'm about to drop on them, and I'm very curious to hear about what you have to say about this.
Okay.
So, I've recently started a new band project, and it's kind of not because of the current situation with the virus, but it is a is a remote thing at the moment, where basically we're collaborating with each other by sending tracks back and forth, and I'm doing most of the mixing, but I'm taking tracks from the vocalist and taking tracks from the drummer, and I'm putting on bass lines and adding some synth parts, and then I'm doing the mixing and Reaper. This band is probably closest to something like Massive Attack. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, cool. Well, it'd be good to do some reference mixing, referencing some Massive Attack songs, because it's sort of a close sort of thing that sounds kind of similar. So I have two tools. I have Magic AB, and I have the Plugin Alliance super duper. It's called AB something.
Metric.
Yeah, that's it. The super duper AB tester from Plugin Alliance, which is really, really great. It's like, great, okay, so I'll go now and get myself some Massive Attack tracks to plug into this AB software. And then suddenly kind of find myself thinking, oh, okay, so where do I go to buy like FLACs or WAV files of commercial releases? Because naturally I listen to those things these days on something like Apple. I use Apple Music, but of course Spotify, all those kinds of streaming services. And then that got me thinking that, like, what are people doing these days for reference tracks? Because if you don't own a CD and you can't, make a 16-bit 44.1 WAV yourself to put into this, how do you get sort of reference tracks that you can plug into software now? So what are you guys doing about that?
Well, 1644, if you go to Tower Records in Japan, you can still get super audio CDs. Come on, Delta Sigma
sadly,
Digital.
I'm no longer in Japan.
I'm
Sadly.
being a little silly. I'm pretty sure you can't get Massive Attack super audio CDs. But yeah, no, I think that's a pretty big thing. Just 10, 15 years ago, it used to be a given. Hey, you have the CD of it. Let's rip the CD and we can work with that. But nowadays, it's actually so much more difficult to do that. And even though there are the high-res services that are out there, stuff like Tidal, it's non-trivial to get that into your local workstation in an easy way. So,
yeah, that's right. I did a search on Gearsluts and KVR and places like that to see what people were using, and most people just sort of said that they just reference off of Spotify or Apple Music, or like basically switching window essentially. Florian has just suggested that he routes Tidal into his DAW to record the track.
I mean, that's the thing.
Craft. That's the way to do it.
It works pretty well, especially if you've got either the software or the hardware to just internally route things. Be like, bam. Since I've got an RME, little plug for RME there. I can easily just hit record, and it will just take anything that is playing over the speakers or wherever, and just dump it into a WAV file that you could just locally access afterwards. So, I mean, that's a good way to do things. Cool. Certainly.
Maybe I should see if I can, if the Focusrite driver allows something like that. But yeah, anyway, the recommendations were there was one called hdtracks.com. HDTracks is not really the place to go if you're looking for big label commercial stuff, which is kind of what you're looking for when you're doing reference mixing, because you want sort of like the super popular, the zeitgeist sound of right now. You want that sound. But HDTracks is not a great place to go for something like Massive Attack or sort of those big commercial releases. I think there's a lot of good jazz. Obviously, there's Bandcamp, and we all love Bandcamp. Bandcamp is great, and Bandcamp allows download if the artist has put it up. It allows download of very high quality FLACs and WAVs and stuff. But again, the same thing, that if you want, it relies on the artist that you're looking for being on Bandcamp. and that's not always the case with the big commercial
Right.
stuff. So, do you have any other
What about
recommendations?
subscribing to YouTube Music? I believe you can download tracks from that. I think a lot of major artists have put their things up on there. You should be able to download something decent from there, would you not?
Oh, really?
Can,
Okay.
can you actually download it as WAV files now?
That I'm not sure, but I'm just thinking like in terms of like if it was a bigger band like he's talking about, and YouTube Music is on that platform just as much as like Spotify, and I don't see why they wouldn't offer it. That wouldn't. I mean, because I was gonna say like another arduous way, which is like open up your iTunes. I don't even want to do that, so I'm not gonna recommend it. But I'm thinking YouTube Music might be a little bit more, just a tiny bit more streamlined for you if you're thinking about it. I don't use that process. I'm old school. I'm just gonna use. I had to use a CD back in the day anyway to get these HSADMs. Well, I had it on a flash drive, but that's how I reference it. But I get with the technology where you're using like Metric AB and Sample Magic and such. Like you want to have something there to kind of see where you're at and get as close to as possible. So maybe YouTube Music might work out.
Yeah, with in the case of iTunes, you can because I subscribe to Apple Music, you can download tracks to your device for listening offline.
Right.
But those are protected. Like you can't just grab them and pull them into any DAW. Actually, they don't load into anything. It's M4P or something like that.
M4A or P?
P. So it's
protected.
Probably more like piss off. Don't be looking here to be trying to rip out files and send them to your friends or anything. Yeah, no, I think probably actually Florian's suggestion of seeing if I can find some kind of internal routing to actually record the stuff, that might be the best option, because I think Apple Music as well, when you're a paying subscriber, it's high quality. So if anybody does come across a good resource for purchasing big kind of commercial titles or getting access to FLACs or WAVs in a legal manner, of course, then please let me know on Twitter, because that's it's a bit of a conundrum. It's like, well, where are people getting their reference tracks for? Is everybody just window switching between Spotify and the DAW, or I guess maybe Florian has the key. Maybe the people are just sort of recording in the DAW with internal routing or something.
Yeah. Isn't this really just a fancy version of what people did back in the day of recording off FM radio with their hi-fi sets?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, man. Yeah, one of the things about your question that kind of struck me is that feels like the exact sort of question that I would hear at something like a GDC lunch. You're hanging out over there and just, I'm with a bunch of audio professionals, I would like to know something about how other people are doing things, and maybe that can strike a conversation. But unfortunately, because of events, GDC did not happen last week. But I thought it was pretty interesting that a whole bunch of stuff did happen last week in its stead. And of course, all of this stuff was happening virtually, digitally. So there was a virtual GDC that actually happened on Twitch last week. Did any of you guys check that out?
Yeah, I got to check it out Monday, just for like a couple talks. I think I saw like the very first one at 9. I saw Winifred's at 12, and then another one. I think that you posted, Vince. I just hopped in there a little bit, and then I was out.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a couple of cool things. It was always interesting, I thought. But in terms of audio track, there wasn't that much. There were only 2 talks that were scheduled the entire week that were specifically audio related. But hey, the other talks were cool. Baba is You is cool. That was definitely one of my favorite games of last year, so it was cool to hear a little bit about that.
You almost said Baba Yet too, didn't you?
Hey, that's also game audio there. But besides GDC itself doing stuff, I thought it was actually really cool how some other game developers and game audio developers especially were setting up different digital venues for people to hang out and just chat, try to replicate the experience that would be had of people, both professionals and amateurs and students and other people that are just generally interested in game development and especially in game audio, hanging about in a space. So there were Discords and Zoom conferences and Google Hangouts where people could just hang out and talk about stuff. And I thought that was actually really cool. Did any of you guys partake in any of those things?
Yeah, I hopped right into that Discord, the unofficial GDC Discord, while one of the talks were happening, and it was cool. I gave some tips to a couple people. They wanted to know how to like sync up like audio with, not sync up, but more like keep it cohesive with the music and sound design so it doesn't clash. I was able to answer some questions for some people that were not probably getting the answers in that overflooded, Twitch channel chat that happens consecutively. But I thought the virtual reality GDC meetup was really cool. I wanted to participate in that. I still haven't set up my Oculus that's hiding behind my Wizard of Oz curtain. But yeah, it was fun. I liked it.
Virtual reality GDC? That one I didn't hear about.
Yeah, there was a virtual reality GDC that happened. You just put on your Rift or whatever, and you just talk to people in virtual reality. It felt like. Have you ever seen that film called Gamer with Michael C. Hall and Gerard Butler?
Oh gosh,
this is perfect. This is exactly what it was. Just with all like more positive things, not none of the stuff that was there, but the idea and the concept behind it was there. I wanted to participate, but like I said, my Oculus is not set up. I need to get that going. But if it was, I would have sure had a good time.
Alex, you should be in virtual reality GDC. That would have been great.
I should be, shouldn't I? No, I sadly I was not. Last week was a bit nuts for a variety of business reasons, so I didn't really. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to get involved in all the stuff that was happening. I was curious to ask you guys, having experienced a regular GDC with the regular audio activities and community activities and the stuff that goes on, did you feel that these substitutes were just as effective or not, just kind of a bit different and not really the same as getting there with Damien and all the game audio people at the carousel and listening to talks and chatting and stuff?
I would say it's a similar mix of, okay, here's some stuff that I know, and here's some stuff that is really cool, and I'm glad that I was able to sit in on a conversation that happened with these two people whom I've never met before, and stuff like that. Let's see. There was a virtual lunch that happened, and I think this was actually a hangout that was started by Damien. And there was a person that was asking a couple of questions, whom I'd never met before, but she was actually asking some pretty cool questions that had never entered my mind before about. Let me see if I can recall this exactly. But basically, she was relating some of her skills that she had and was talking about other spaces for basically selling her skills with these particular game audio development tools. So things like Max MSP and Pure Data and whatnot. And okay, that's kind of in my wheelhouse, but then that spun off into another conversation that I didn't really have that much information about this world of, what does it take to actually sell a sample library or a synthesizer to primarily other game audio designers. And wow, that was actually a really cool conversation. That was very much akin to something that I might just happen across if I was, say, at the carousel outside of Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. So there were definitely some cool things that I came across.
So when that was held in text, or was it?
It was audio. So basically, this one was a Google Hangouts, and it was just I think it basically just started out with a couple of tweets. Hey, here is a public Google Hangout. Come join us. And I think there were maybe 6 or 7 people there at any given
Okay.
time. And there were people coming in and out, over the course of an hour or so. And it was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Just sort of, it was basically
Right.
very much like that. Hey, here's a space. You want to drift in and see what the conversation is like. Maybe you contribute a few things. I contributed a snippet here and there, but really the
Cool.
main meat of the conversation was happening right in front of me, and I was very happy to be privy to that conversation. After a while, I just stepped away, and then there were a couple of other conversations that were happening in other places, like Aaron Brown, I think, is setting up this virtual audio con, which is a Discord, and then there were a couple of different Zoom teleconferences that were similar. You join in, you turn on your mic, and people were generally really nice and very polite and considerate. So maybe there would be 3 or 4 people with their mics open at any given time, and there would be some cool conversation happening. Sometimes it was just jokes. Like, I think the first thing that I heard was people talking about smearing butter over their Genelecs in order to give it that super creamy, milky sort of base. Then I responded with a joke about, well, actually, I prefer ghee, because if you put ghee on the tweeters, it really gives it that high-end clarity.
Here in Europe, we're all about the lard. It's all lard here. That's what that gives it that analog warmth.
Yes, exactly.
That's interesting, because the from a social point of view, that is interesting, because obviously when you have a collective room like that, there can only be one conversation going on at one time, and basically one person's speaking at one time. And then it's curious though, like the different ways for, if you have 6 people at a time, 6 or 7 people, then that would be manageable for sure. But if it's like 50 people at a time and only one person can talk, I think that's gonna get a little bit unruly, I suppose.
Yeah, that definitely changes things. I just can't even imagine the audio equivalent of the 100 mile an hour scrolling Twitch chat. Like,
Right.
I can't keep up with that, and I never came across that last week, so that was good. I was very pleasantly surprised to see how ruly, is that a word? Ruly? Is that the opposite of unruly? How ruly everything was. Tidy. I like that word. Yeah, everything was very tidy, and everyone was very good about the self-regulation, I guess.
That's good. Cool.
Ooh, yeah. This I was going to say, actually, with this whole virtual audio convening, it got me thinking about the fact that I'm going to have to be doing more and more electronically. And I don't know if you guys have thought much about this, but what are you going to do in terms of your social media profile? Because I feel like that's going to be more and more important now than it was even just a few weeks ago. So I'm really thinking about what I'm going to be doing in terms of broadcasting my presence out there.
Yeah, I think right now, like this very moment today, I'm actually kind of trying to limit the amount that I'm using social media, because there's a lot of very valid but very passionate discussion there about coronavirus and things like that. That's not really terribly helpful for my general state of mind. So this is a funny, like Vince and I, we were saying before the show started, that it's a really peculiar time that we live in now, where you have immediate, instant access to everybody's opinion. And sometimes that's not what you need. Sometimes it's important to have a bit of solitude or a little bit of focus to stick onto, the thing that, to stay focused in your own direction and not be too influenced by what thousands of other people are thinking. However, yeah, back to your point about for professional use and social media, it's really peculiar that you remember that, like, even 10 years ago, it was kind of a shocking thing to have your real name and a real actual photo of you on your internet profile. And then somewhere along the line, it sort of changed to be the other way around, where now everybody, it's kind of expected that you have your real name there and you have a photo of yourself, or at least you don't try to hide that. So now, like, that's a really, really interesting sort of change. And that means that basically you have two personas. You have the online version of yourself and you have the real life version of yourself. And naturally, it's always an ethical thing to make sure that the two of those are lined up and you're the same person in both places and you take responsibility for what you say in the same way online as you do in real life. But I guess from an audio point of view, coming back to useful discussion, from an audio point of view, I suppose Twitter. Are there, like, for game audio, other than Twitter, are there other platforms that are more useful or more popular these days?
Man.
Yeah, Instagram
TikTok?
actually. TikTok, no. Instagram, on the other hand, is a little bit easier, and I think it's a little bit more warm, welcoming. I've been getting actually a nice little decent following happening. Just the way I've been kind of doing it is not really regurgitating or repeating everything that everyone else is saying. I mean, I'm cognizant that we all need to be safe and aware and happy and stuff. But I guess as content creators, as we are, is what I've seen is that we are the ones that are of entertainment right now. So me being a musician, I'm thinking about like doing some piano covers and such. Like Vince, if you played the EWI, if the three of us, you got Alex, you got on the bass, we could be doing like mini concerts. And I've been kind of doing that in terms of like just maybe thinking of creative ways to kind of just keep the spirits up. And by posting that on like Instagram, I'm showing like, hey, I'm still working on little things here. I'm making progress. Or I just do like little stories and little fun videos. I have this little chick I have, and I like zoom in on them or something, or sometimes she's dancing or whatever. So this is like my little buddy friend there. And just, I guess, just keeping it as a professional, just keeping it positive, maybe not so much like, hey, look at me, or like, oh, would you like to, collab on something today? We can use, what's the one, Vince? Beatbox.
Yeah.
I write a little thing and then you add on to that, and that's super great. I mean, Austin Witchery posted something about that earlier or last night or something. It got like a little bit of a remixed contest thing or collaboration stuff going on with someone, a journalist from IGN, all the way to someone who's probably getting started out with game audio. And so I just think that us as creatives probably need to just keep the content coming, but with more interaction and not make it more like selfless.
I have a question because I'm a little bit of an Instagram noob as far as content creation goes. I have an account and I have some photos up there and stuff, and I consume a lot. Like, I look at a lot of Instagram stuff, but my question is, how do you, so like as audio people, how do you get the audio onto Instagram? Like, are you just like taking your phone up to your screen and saying, hey, look at what I'm working on in my DAW like this, or like, how do you do that?
We could do it that way, or we could do it as like a screen share or for the OBS, and then you record your process on the computer, and then you just export it, and then if you got video software, you just edit it. And it's a bit of a process, but you just upload it to Drive, and then because Instagram is so tight on the phone, you've got to have the Drive on your phone and then download that video, and then you can put the audio on there.
That's
or
a
you can
process.
just have like a video thing. It is, but you get faster at it. I've now got it down to like 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm thinking about a video producer. I'm thinking about what I want to create. I capture that. I stop the recording. I open the video software. I cut it. I put it together, and it's done. So you've got the process together in your mind first, and then just the uploading and downloading is fast. Like, for some people, right? You just upload to Drive. As soon as it's uploaded to Drive, you download on your phone, then you open Instagram, and it's right there in your camera thing. So you're good to go.
I see. That was the question, because I was thinking, when I look through Instagram, and there's a whole lot of cool stuff on there, and I'm wondering, like, that's clearly not from a phone. To like all these people do something on their computer and then go through all the process of getting it onto here through any of the ways that you can do that, like Dropbox or Drive or whatever. If you're on a Mac, you can use AirDrop as well, I guess. But like all of that process, everybody does that for Instagram. Because like so much of it is clearly not from a phone, and especially audio, you don't want to have like Well, I guess a lot of people do. A lot of people do for sure. But I don't know how exciting it is to be hearing sound from this microphone through these speakers at a blurry picture of renoise happening here in front of me. And I'm not sure how appealing that's going to be. But so that's answered my question. So the answer is yes. You do it on your computer, you save it, and then you get it to your phone, and you post it that way.
I'm glad that you said that, because quite honestly, I was thinking the exact same thing. Do people really go through that entire process? And I was thinking about that. Yeah, seeing all these music composers that are doing things like this. Hey, I'm going to post a snippet on Instagram. I was also thinking about some of the things that people are doing on Twitter. There's a couple of music composers and game developers that actually show stuff on Twitter, and not just videos, but actually live broadcast on Twitter. There's this one dude, Nobuyoshi Sano, who is he always does these broadcasts of stuff that he does with the core gadget on the Nintendo Switch. It's like, wow, he's broadcasting on Twitter. That's really cool, and I check it out every now and then. It's a long broadcast. I don't really go in and stay for the entire hour or so that he's broadcasting, but it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of scary because it makes me think about, what should I be focusing on? Should I do this Twitter thing? Should I do this Instagram thing? Yesterday, I actually did about 6 hours of streaming on Twitch, and it was actually really good because I ended up writing something kind of cool. But in terms of actual impact out there, like how many people were really engaged, I'm thinking about that. I've got some questions about what's really the best way to go about it. So many options, a little bit of a analysis paralysis happening for me there.
By the way, if anybody is confused about how to actually stream audio from a DAW to anything on your computer, Vince has an excellent 7 or 8 minute video on YouTube on his channel where he goes through how to use Reaper's ReaStream plugin to basically stream output from your audio to anything, such as this podcast right now, because that's exactly what you're using right now.
Yeah. Man, thank you for tweeting that. For some reason, I didn't tweet that, but you tweeted that. And actually, because you tweeted it, other sound designers and music composers have actually retweeted that thing. And that was actually really cool.
Actually, my tweet went super viral. Super viral for me, for my humble. Let me see. Let's come and have a look at the latest stats on this super viral tweet of mine.
Well, it's not really that. Well, I mean, it's not really that viral, but it's cool that Reaper Blog. I was actually really excited that Reaper
Vince.
Blog actually picked up on that.
Come on, Vince is like, what do you mean not that viral? 22 likes, 7 retweets. That is like fire.
Actually, I'll tell you. Besides those numbers, the thing that was the coolest thing was it wasn't your tweet, but another tweet that was liked by someone else, and that someone else was Masaharu Iwata, who is the other composer for Ogre Battle back in the mid-90s. I was like, what? This dude's on Twitter? That's cool. He liked this thing? Oh, that's cool. So that was actually really neat for me. I was rather chuffed when I came across that.
Oh,
This is wonderful.
Well, we are we're 5 minutes.
If I may just speak about one thing, and we usually do a little tech talk, so I want to kind of lead it with it to keep it super short. Just want to give a nice shout out to Zilia, and actually Florian is representing this company. He's in the chat, as you've been having a good one with, and they are creating, or have created rather, it's more like ambisonics type of microphones, specifically the ZM1. And just want to kind of share this with the audio community out there. If you're working with any type of like VR audio right now, which is beyond the horizon at this point, it's got some really cool like technique things. I'm scrolling down over here, and I saw something that was caught my eyes, a blog post of how to easily record classical music. And I've been kind of struggling myself with a little bit of spatialization with this. And so I was thinking, I remember taking my Zoom recorder and having to do that, but it would be nice to like up my gear and use this technology to kind of like possibly record like classical music in a setting for some new scores I want to have performed later in the year. So then this will probably be really good. I mean, because I'm sure us as professionals have definitely been coming more into VR work and things of that nature. So I want to give like a nice shout out and highlight of that. And they've got this other one here. It's the Zelia 6DOF VR AR set, which comes with at least, I want to say like 7 of these nice little omnispherical microphones. It's pretty nice. I like it.
Man.
I hope to get my hands on one of these one day, like a test kit or something, to kind of just play around.
So this is actually cool.
Check out the website.
I'm actually looking at this right now, and I'm a little bit surprised. So I had actually seen a little bit about this towards the end of last year, and I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm actually looking at the shop right now. I'm like, okay, this is maybe a little bit more inexpensive than I thought it was going to be, because when it comes to ambisonics hardware, that stuff can get a little bit crazy. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is still starting out at 3 digits. I'm looking at the Zelia music thing, and it's 650. I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking about that. Now I'm thinking of I mean, you're bringing this up, but I'm actually thinking about that, because that's one of these big capability upgrades that I would probably like to have as a sound designer. I mean, right now I've got a very traditional sound designer's toolkit. I've got my recorder, I've got a couple of different microphones, a couple of different shotties, basically, and then something for ambisonics. That would probably be the next step for me. So thanks for bringing this up.
Absolutely.
And we've actually got just a few more minutes, and I'm surprised that you're not bringing this up right now, Chase, because it is 2 minutes to the hour, and we still haven't talked about the games that we're playing.
Oh, I'll let you guys do your thing with it now. I know what I'm playing. I don't know what you guys are playing, but I wanted to give it, another chance for someone else to be like, I'm playing this, and then I can hop in.
Oh man. I gotta admit, I'm not doing that much playing right now. Instead, I am watching Val, my wife, play Animal Crossing, and I feel like I'm playing it because she's letting me just experience all the cute and cool and neat things that she's experiencing in this game. I cannot go, I won't say a minute, but I can't go an hour without seeing something new and different about Animal Crossing. And it seems like Nintendo's got a winner here, and maybe I'll find some time this week to actually check it out myself firsthand.
Yeah, I'm excited actually for it too. I'm not a really big Animal Crossing fan, but I've been really interested in implementation lately and just gathering ideas. And I've just been studying it just for implementation purposes and orchestration differences. Because I write a lot of music in a dark tone, so just want to understand like what's gravitating the listener, the player, or that the composer to write more happy things, and how that implementation works with that. So I use it for more like research and that. But that's not what I'm playing. I'm still playing Darkstone. I'm just going to say it. I've been getting a lot of love for this. You guys may remember this. It's a really deep cut, but I'm playing the one on PlayStation. Mm-hmm. So that's been my veg out time.
Nice. What about you, Alex? Playing any games right now? Oh, wait a minute. Have you played Half-Life Alyx yet? Because I know that's the big thing that has your name written all over it.
I know. So, yes, I would be if I wasn't recording this with you guys right now, because it was indeed released like several hours ago. So I have bought it, and I will be playing that. The other two things, as usual, my kind of go-to these days has been Warframe. Still playing Warframe. Stupid Warframe. Just like endless content. So that. The other game that I actually played early in the week, which I can highly recommend, which you've no doubt heard about, is called A Short Hike.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the indie darling at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely been getting a lot of nice, positive, and it seems to me well-deserved press. I haven't played it myself, but
yeah, it's you should definitely. I mean, it's inexpensive actually. When I got it, it was free. I don't know if it's free at the moment, but it's a 2-hour game. It takes about 2 hours to complete. And it is a beautiful. It's like a love letter to adventure games. Basically, it's extremely simple. It's basically take the essence of what's nice about Zelda and that style of sort of a puzzle adventure game. Take the essence of that and strip away everything else and just leave the pure thing that you like about that kind of game. That's basically what it is. So it's extremely simple, not simple in the sense that it's easy to play. It is easy to play, but it is simple in the sense that the design intent with it is very, very focused and basic. And everything else about it is just executed absolutely flawlessly. Like it's just a simple, refined sort of package of concentrated sort of adventure game fun. So if you like that kind of game, I can highly recommend it, especially if you're interested in sort of the academic side of game design, because it's just flawlessly executed for what it sets out to achieve. So,
wow, that's really high praise.
Yeah.
I need to get in on that. And I mean, I guess I should have realized also from the title that it wouldn't overstay its welcome. I know part of my reticence for getting into games, especially as having like a pretty long work day, is I don't want to just dive into something where the end is not in sight. So something like this is actually really good to know about, and so I'm going to try to make some time for that. Great, thank you.
Yeah, it is literally 2 hours. Like even if you get a little bit stuck, it's about 2 hours to play. And again, as testimony to its excellent design, if you want to play it for longer, there's probably about 4 or 5 hours of content. No, maybe not that much. About 3 or 4 hours of content in there. But the straight through run is about 2 hours. So nice, compact, concentrated experience. Highly recommended.
Great, thank you. I want to check that out. I think maybe I'll take an extended lunch today because that's about that time for me. It's been slightly more than a game audio hour, but that is great. Thank you for joining us for our sojourn into that game audio world. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter. If you have any questions about stuff, you can go ahead and throw that out at us as direct messages or comments on this YouTube when it drops. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again, not next week, but next month. Later.